has a Notre Dame call anyway, so she's like, you can get home, but don't get in the way of the call. So I'm like, that's fine. I'll just talk to Ken. It'll be fun.
Hey, that being said, we are live tonight here. Interview with the Cities and Suburbs. 3/3/2025. And we have a lot going on tonight. We have Peter Kush, interview with the always a popular series here on Cities and Suburbs. So anyway, it is friggin' cold. It doesn't feel like it's going to be spring pretty soon, but it will be. So tonight, Peter and I are going to talk about some sports. We're going to talk about particularly a lot of local, what I consider to be nonsense, and most of you guys out there consider to be nonsense. So we hope you are going to tune in tonight. I did not send out an early message in terms of I was going to be live. I figured we'd surprise you. So anyway, supplies. Yes, that's what the janitor said when he jumped out of the closet. Supplies. Yes. So anyway, Peter, welcome aboard.
It feels good to be back. First time of 2025. I feel like I've been in exile for the past bunch of months.
I know, and a lot going on. You know, did you know? I was talking today, and today will be, at least in Massachusetts, next week actually, the 15th, which is on a Saturday, which fell on a Monday back in 2020. Which was the official shutdown for the state of Massachusetts when we went into that beautiful lockdown for only 2 weeks so we could crush the curve, where 2 weeks turned into 2 months, 12 months, 2 years. So 5-year anniversary. I spoke with a lot of people today, Peter, and maybe they just blocked it out. I'm a big one for dates, but I certainly remember that. And then that was probably the worst thing. And we're still kind of crawling out of it, I think, Well,
it's funny, Ken, because I remember when COVID was getting big. It's one of those things you kind of remember. Like, I remember when, September 11th was. I was in my high school history class, because now I'm feeling old. But with COVID, I was sitting watching a playoff hockey game at Yale University, and nobody really was sure what COVID was at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there was people talking about it, and you were reading articles about it, and then throughout the course of the game, it was incredible because it went from being this talked about things, all of a sudden the entire Ivy League shut down their postseason. They announced that none of the teams would be competing. And then pretty soon, all these other leagues all fell in. It was incredible, and it's hard because sports, for a lot of people, even if you don't pay super close attention, sports is kind of the one normalcy for a lot of people in life. It's something that most people can follow at least a basic rudimentary level, and I think that amongst a lot of things, but sports especially, not having that crutch, I think really hurt a lot of people. And I know I was watching the Blue Jays and the Cardinals fight overseas in my front lawn, keeping score, pretending it was a baseball game. That's how much I miss sports.
Yeah, I mean, you hit it all on the head, and I mean, who wants to go back there? I mean, but it was just a really tough lockdown. We lost a lot of what makes us human. I mean, remember the I think it was in 2021 when they had the NFL, even MLB with those stupid cutout posters in the stands. Remember that?
Oh
yeah. And a 60 game, I think it was a 60 game 2020 World Series that the Dodgers won with an asterisk.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean,
well, it's and then it was funny because, like, again, talking about that normalcy. Well, Massachusetts was one of the last states in the Northeast to open up. Because I remember when I was dating my now wife at the time, we had to go to New Britain, Connecticut. It's funny because we ended up finding a great brewery, and shout out to Alvarium in New Britain, Connecticut. If you're ever there, the beer is great. Try the honey shot. It's funny.
Yeah,
But
that's cool.
our first dates were in Connecticut and New Hampshire because we couldn't do anything in Massachusetts.
Hmm. Yeah. So, you know, I didn't really plan to go down that road, but you really can't think about sports and a 5-year anniversary, particularly here in Massachusetts, with, you know, the psychological impact that that stupid friggin' virus that should never have been here, by the way, um, you know, wreaked havoc on the world. China still has a zero COVID policy.
There's a couple of countries out there. I mean, I know we're not all going to fly over to North Korea, but North Korea has been, it's always been a very shut down country. They haven't had a foreign tourist in North Korea since COVID started. Granted, it's not a big destination for a lot of people, but if you're Chinese or Russian, there is a lot of tourism there. So there are some countries, especially in kind of that Eurasia area, that are still very, very, very careful about COVID.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I don't know. Maybe we kind of just mainstreamed it into the influenza thing, and just another thing to get, you know, who knows? But I'm glad we've kind of moved on. But there's still a deep scar in this country from COVID. I see it with employment. You just feel it. Look at the inflation rate. You know, I mean, look at the inflation rate. Look at today's lunch at Genesis Club. $50 a piece for each of those pot roasts.
Yeah.
50 bucks a piece. So you wonder why people aren't going out. They're not doing this. So what you're doing is nice because you're coming back from playing what, racquetball?
Racquetball.
So where do you do that?
I used to play in Worcester. I played in Worcester for a long time. It was actually a way I lost weight. For people who know me way back when, I actually used to be skinny. Now I'm like a pre-Santa mode, a little chubby. But back in the days playing in Worcester, they closed the courts because of some shady bookkeeping with the city of Worcester.
No way, really?
Yeah, yeah. So they, with the school district, actually, of all things, because Chandler Elementary School needed classroom space, and they said the courts were underutilized, so they made an agreement with the city of Worcester gym, which were at the time the racquetball and the squash courts. So we lost 3 really good courts. But racquetball, and then I went to Marlboro, and the courts were fine. I knew a lot of people played in Marlboro, but it just wasn't the same. I lost a lot of the old friends I played with, and then I kind of got out of it, and then I got a little fat. And then when I got engaged, I was like, shit, I got to lose some weight because I gotta try to look at least half decent for my wedding.
Yeah.
And so I started playing again, and I found a great group of guys down at in Lancaster at Orchard Hill. But I also play in a league in Shrewsbury, so that's kind of trying to keep me busy now.
Nice. That's nice. So, all right. So, you ran for city council once many years ago, correct?
That is correct. So some of my fondest memories, some of my strangest memories, but some of my fondest memories. I'm not going to lie about that.
So I'll get into that in a minute, but let me ask you this: given Worcester City Council's all over the news. I mean, it's actually even national, only because of the non-binary trans communities, right? Which has made it more of a national issue, which is fine. Your estimation right now, what is your for someone who is involved in Worcester and ran for city council? What is your I don't even want to say opinion, but what are your critical thoughts right now to where the city government lies? Is it functional or dysfunctional?
So let me preface it by saying that I understand no matter where you fall in the political spectrum nowadays, that there are very, very important issues to people that are being laid bare by the current administration. Whether you like the current administration, don't like the current administration, tensions are very high. And I understand that there are certain groups of people who feel threatened by the current administration, which I understand. I understand their feelings. with that said, I do think the city council has kind of lost its way. It's lost its message. It's not, and again, when I ran for city council, people bemoaned the city council as a weak city council back then. My father, who I don't know if you ever met, he was a longtime reporter at the Worcester Telegram council meetings in the 80s and the 90s. And he would always talk about how those meetings would go hours and hours, and they would argue, and there was a fight on the floor of the city council, but they were fighting about city issues.
Yeah, they were passionate.
And this is is the important thing. And I don't mean to ramble, but the important thing is the city council needs to understand that they are city councilors, not United States congressmen. And they are addressing issues that are beyond the scope of their office. And it's not helping the city. You should never have a situation where you have city councilors on the floor inciting a riot in the gallery. Should never happen. The city council, again, has got to remember that they are here to make sure that the roads get paved, that the roads get cleared, the leaves get collected, and that taxes stay reasonable. Mm-hmm. The city council, they're not United States congressmen. Correct. And I think that we have a problem now where we have too many councilors on the council who think that they are United States congressmen. They want to argue national politics, which is fine. Run for Congress. It's a great job.
Right.
From what I heard.
Yeah. So exactly. So and there's 11 city councilors, right? It seems like 11 friggin' different agendas, and putting individuals first in the city or any organized necessary social government, right? You can't put every individual first. You just can't do that.
Right.
Ray Mariano, who you either liked him or didn't like him many years ago. Oh my gosh, when he was mayor. But he was actually on the news saying that they're getting it, being at home, Councilor Newen, and now Attell, because I got a baseball thrown now at my house and it shook the world. And they're not in person and I will say there because there was Attell and Newen. So I said there because there was two of them. I'm sorry not to offend, but that's just that normal speak. But if they're not there, and the city manager, he can't do anything about this. There's nothing in the charter. So the charter's old. We talked about this, right? So,
right.
So when you look at if you were to assess the functionality of the Worcester City Council right now, and you were giving a grade school, right, 1 through 4, because that's how they behave. A, B, C minus. Where do you see this council as far as?
They'd be all in center detention. The fact that they can't get along, and the thing is. And the striking thing, and again, I preface this by saying, by the way, Ray Mariano is my former boss, so I will never say anything ill about Ray. I love you, Ray.
Well, that's because
go Michigan.
Yeah, because you worked with Ray in Worcester Housing, correct?
Correct. Yeah, Ray was I was with Ray until I left the housing authority. He had just retired and turned over to Alex when I left. So I have great respect for Ray and all he did on council. I will say, too, I also used to work with Attell. She worked at the Housing Authority through a subcontract from another agency, and I got along great with her. I'm on friendly terms with her. I have no issues with her. I think, again, her politics, she's confusing her role. And there was a really striking comment this past week, and it was a line that might have flown by a lot of people. People might not have picked up on it, but it was when she was talking about, I'm not a representative of the DPW. That's your job. Your job is supposed to be, when your constituents are struggling to get city services, that is your job. You are supposed to take those calls.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, her district 5 is a Tells district. It's nothing but really residential, right?
Yeah, she does have Webster Square and the Webster Square towers, but for the most part, yeah, she's mostly residential. 1 in 5 tend to be a little more residential.
Now, you're okay with calling her a she, right?
Adele, I believe Adele. I mean, I hope I'm not misgendering. I apologize. But,
No. I'm being sarcastic because it's my show and I can do that.
Well, I don't want to get burned in effigy.
Oh no, of course not. But
I mean, again, going back to it again, and this is also kind of a frustrating thing, is the city council. You city councils who don't want to go to. I knew city councilors for years who hated city council meetings. They said they were the most. I won't say who they were. If you see me on the street and want to slide me a couple of bucks, I might give you a hint. But I knew many city councilors who said the meetings were awful. They were boring. They were dreary. I mean, the city council really is a thankless job, and it's set up to be. When I ran for city council, it was a stipend. You were getting paid. I think, don't quote me on this, it was about $15,000 a year to be a part-time city councilor. That's jumps. They're up to, I think, $25,000 or $30,000 now to be a city councilor in Worcester. And you have a counselor who refused, 2 counselors now, who refused to show up and do the job.
Exactly.
They want to only do on, I mean, that is silly to me.
And again, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yep.
No, I mean, in Boston, we have the city councilor in Boston who got into a big tiff with the whole with the Homeland Security, the border czar that Trump appointed, and she got a bunch of threats from Tom Holland, and she still showed up to meetings. Like we can't have, and again, the city council is not responsible for trans rights, which God bless trans rights. I have friends who are trans. I have friends who are gay. I wish them the best, and I wish them all the protection in the world. It's not the city council's job. The city council does not have a job to that.
Right.
It is the Worcester police work under Mass General Law, and it's not the Worcester City Council's responsibility. Mm-hmm. They are there to be the first line to help people advocate for city services.
Right.
And you have 2 councilors who are now absconding on that duty.
Yep. And I'll go back to it. There's not one. I really started earnestly watching the city council meetings on live. And I appreciate that they are broadcasted live. You're a sick man if you're watching city council meetings. We're gonna get you a better hobby, like building model ships. I got plenty of models to build, but I do build my models while I watch the city council, because some of it is, as much as I like an open forum and the public can come in and address items that are on the agenda and they sign up. Over the last month, that it's been clogged, and I get people are exercising their constitutional right to assemble, freedom of speech. The city council gives you 2 minutes, and but just a couple of weeks ago, Peter, was it Jenny Piccolo said we need to install a clock, for 2 minutes, and I'm like, really, people, Joe Petty, Mayor Petty, who's being challenged again this November, I believe, somewhere around there, September, October, November, for the Worcester City elections. But Jenny Piccolo, who's not running again, and probably wisely so, Bill Russell, is it George Russell? I'm sorry, George Russell.
George Russell.
I know. I keep calling the other guy. The other guy plays basketball. The other guy sells real estate. But what do I know?
Right.
And
I love Bill Russell on City Council. I think he brings some really good issues to the table.
Yeah, but I think they're stepping down because of all the minutiae. Jenny Piccolo 1 term, and who was it? Sean Rose or Kristen King? Because Sean Rose is now running again, I believe.
Sean Rose is running again for the seat. Tony Economou is also running for the seat. Again, so we have 2 former District 1 city councilors running for District 1 city council.
Isn't that wild? So what do you think Nguyen will do? They have said I'm suspending my in-person meeting indefinitely. Attell's held hostage. Christian King, oh my God, is throwing his hat in the ring for the city of Worcester as far as mayor, which is, come on, he's vice chair right now, vice mayor, and the progressive house movement is been killed by this whole the city council. They're going to try to research. They're trying to pull the party so far, the council so far left. But when you have Carlson and Bergman, and that's not going to happen. It's just going to create a bunch of infighting.
Right. I mean, the problem is the city council, and when the city council was done right, it is non-political. And you had city councilors who you knew were conservatives for years. Everybody knew Connie Lukes was conservative. There are other city councilors whose names are escaping me, even though I wrote their names down, who were conservative councilors. But it's a non-party. There are no parties. When my name was on the ballot, it just said Peter C. Kush. There was no D, there was no R, it just says your name.
Right.
There are no parties. And part of the reason is because it's set up to be that way. Because again, I know I've said this a few times, they're not there to be spokespeople for. I don't know if you remember, Ken, this was after I ran. They had this issue with Arizona, and there's a lot of municipalities were boycotting Arizona. And it was stupid because you were boycotting Arizona, but Worcester doesn't get anything from Arizona, and people ended up trying to take it out on Arizona Iced Tea, who's owned by apparently they're liberals. But I don't understand why the city, because of Worcester, there were a lot of issues in Worcester that the city council needs to focus on. Right. There's the fiasco with the ballpark. There's issues with the shelters.
Right.
There's houses are unaffordable. When I was looking to buy a house, I moved to Air. We looked at Worcester for a hot minute, and then we were like, why are we going to move to Worcester and pay $500,000 for a 2-3 bedroom house with 1 bath when we could get a 3-bedroom, 2-bath and Air for under $300,000, just around $300,000?
Yeah.
It's gotten to a point where Worcester has some real issues, and the council should be addressing them, but they're not. They're focused on functional right now because they're focused on so many different things. And again, I know a lot of the councilors personally. I don't know Councilor Nguyen at all. I had already left Worcester, and since I've left Worcester, I've kind of not washed my hands, but I made a pledge not to donate anymore to Worcester candidates. I used to give money to some candidates. Since I've left Worcester, I don't anymore. I made a pledge not to because I just don't want to really be involved in the Worcester political scene anymore. Yep. I took a step away because I don't live in Worcester. I work in Worcester. I don't live in Worcester. So I don't know Councilor Nguyen personally. And from the stories I've heard, the scuttlebutt I've heard, this whole thing originates from a situation on Inauguration Day where Councilor Nguyen was misgendered by an assistant city clerk who didn't know how that Councilor Nguyen identified as non-binary. And it really does trivialize, because there are individuals who do get misgendered on purpose. And that is a problem. If you're out there being an asshole, I hope I can say asshole on the radio, if you're being an asshole to someone, about their gender, that's one thing. There should be, there should be a stern talking to, or at least some shame thrown at that person for being a dick. But if it's an honest accident, it should not be, because it trivializes people who really do get harassed and misgendered.
Right.
And it blows the situation up, and you make the city clerk's office, which I interned at the city clerk's office under Dave Rushford. I love the city clerk's office. I've always said it's one of the most well-run. I mean, you look at, with housing, I often spend a lot of time dealing with city clerk offices, trying to get birth certificates and stuff. Worcester's clerk is one of the best. It's always been one of the best. They're super responsive, and they're always there to help people. And Dave Rushford was great. He's one of a kind. Shout out to Dave Rushford if you're listening. But our new clerk is wonderful too. And I find it disingenuous to call them that they're hating trans and non-binary because of honest acts.
Yeah, and what I realize now is that Councilor Nguyen is using her position. I'm sorry, their position to make I don't know, almost like using their position as a kind of like a Braveheart, and becoming almost a martyr, if you will, or lack of a better term, and they're using their position to fight this social justice effort from the City Council of Worcester, the City Council point of view. And yeah, it's not the city's business, it's just not. And to say I've indefinitely resigned, right? Getting other councilors, Patel, Christian King, Nguyen has the secret base. They all campaign for each other, and then you've got the older conservative part across the aisle with the Colorios and the Bergmans and the Carlsons and the George Russells who are gone. It's certainly, I think it's intentionally divisive on purpose to make a stand, to use Worcester for this one person. Forget if they're a council person or not.
Right.
To say use Worcester as a platform for social change in that category, and that's friggin'
right.
That's a waste. It's such a waste of friggin' time,
Right. I mean, if you want to campaign and you want to push that agenda, I honestly don't have an issue with it. Like if you're pushing it outside the council chambers. But once again, just to beat that drum, it's not the city council's job. If you want to go to rallies and you want to say, I hate Trump, I stand for trans rights, I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a problem. The problem is, like, the city has real issues, and the city has a lot of issues between the infrastructure, between, again, a ballpark deal which 3 years later looks terrible.
Yes,
and we talked about this 3 years ago.
Yep.
And you were more optimistic than I am, and I'm hoping you're coming to the pessimistic side. But the deal looks so bad right now.
No, and actually, I support your narrative from 3 years ago because that's all they talk about in Worcester is Polar Park and the Canal District, and downtown is a freaking. It's filled with zombies, and there's never been, and that's why, and getting back to it, that's why we need a council that looks at a bigger plan for Worcester instead of people. Even I said that to Candy Merrill Carlson, District 2 council, when I saw her back in October at Mechanics Hall for an event, and I said, what's going on with downtown, and I challenged her a little bit, and that's okay, and she came back, and going back and forth, and and she was saying, well, it seems like the district councils all have their territory, and they come to City Hall, and which they should, they're a representative, like a state rep, right? You want them to go represent your cause, right?
Right.
But that's not being done right now, is it?
No, and honestly, and I will say, Dave Peterson, when he ran for city council, he lost in District 1.
Yeah, he lost.
He ran 2 years ago, and he went to a city council meeting, and he basically said it best. He looked at the city councilors and said, "We, the Worcester Bravehearts, have been here for 10 years. We have never asked anything of the city. The city has never given us anything. The city has never given us any financial support and any real support. And the minute the Red Sox come in demanding X, Y, and Z, the city rolls over and caves to the Red Sox so they can get Polar Park built." And he brought up a good point. It's like the city had a good thing. Now, Polar Park, I go to Polar Park once in a while. I've caught a few games there. It's fun. But the deal and the tips and the deferred money and the money that the city sank into it, it's just not. The checkbook's not going to balance at the current rate.
Right, and we're seeing that now because they're stating the developers didn't build certain parcels which didn't matriculate into. It's not even liquid cash. It's basically stocks or money being backed by a bank. But I will push back. I will push back a little bit because, the Bravehearts and an international brand, which the Red Sox are really, it's two different levels of negotiation, money. There's so much branding and contracting that goes on with just how are you going to use the Red Sox. I mean, that's an international label with Worcester Bravehearts. Okay, but the bottom line is the Bravehearts still that kind of baseball, whether the Red Sox were here or not, was here. So, but they're just not going to be able to compete as. But I believe though the Bravehearts, that when the waters calmed, right? People go. There's a group that goes. There's a demographic. There's a group that goes see the Bravehearts, and there's people that go to Polar Park, right? There's people that go there every game. There's people that never go. There's people that just go if they get free tickets. I think it's just a different kind of thing. So I get Dave Peterson. I do get him. He's a hell of a marketer with the Worcester Bravehearts. I think he's the guy that really, took him out of the Creedence hands and was able to market him the right way. He made the games fun and things like that. So, and I know I've gone back and forth with him on posts online about things we've agreed about or not agreed on. But that's just my 2 cents. When you're taking on an international brand like the Red Sox and they want to be in Worcester, you're as a municipality and a government and, that represents the people. The people wanted it. And,
Right, but you also, I mean, again, and I go back to Pawtucket because you got to remember that Pawtucket was still the first choice. Worcester, the only reason Worcester got picked over Pawtucket was because Pawtucket needed other things. They needed a hospital. They needed a new high school, and they didn't have the money for it.
Right.
And you flash forward to Worcester. Worcester didn't have the money either. Right. Worcester just basically put it all on a credit card. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm not gonna lie. It is a beautiful stadium. I do think that the city got screwed because the original. And we talked about this in person. I think on the show. The original mock-ups for the Polar Park. You're supposed to have a brick facade. It was supposed to be closer to Camden Yards, and it looks like a side of a train on the Providence and Worcester Railroad.
Right.
But it is a beautiful park once you're in it. They did a wonderful job. But again, you put all that money, you deferred all that money down the road, mm-hmm. and you ate a lot of that money. And that whole time, all Pawtucket had to say was yes. All they had to do was sign the line, and it was going to be Pawtucket over Worcester.
Mm-hmm.
And there should be something to be said about that, where now, 3 years later, the cows are coming home to roost, or chickens, or whatever animal from a farm animal is coming home to roost. And the Bills do, and the Polar Park has not lived up there, hit the benchmarks it was promised. And on top of that, the ballpark, it's like a new car. It just depreciates in value. The ballparks don't make more money the longer they're there. If anything, they lose money. The luster wears off. People start having other fun projects to go to. And the other thing I will say about Polar Park and the Canal District, Worcester has a very finite amount of people who will go to events. And you have Polar Park and the Canal District, but you are pulling entertainment, because in this economy, people only have so much money to spend. So you might go to Polar Park and spend a night at the game. People aren't going to the shops near Polar Park. People aren't going to the restaurants around Polar Park. People aren't going to Shrewsbury Street anymore. People aren't going to hit any of the cafes up around Grafton Street. It's basically, they're going to the ballpark and they're going home. And that's it. So yeah. It is a beautiful ballpark once you're inside.
Right.
But you have to look at the priorities of what Worcester needs. And was a ballpark really it? I don't know. I mean, it's too late now. We're not going to, be able to take that back. Mm-hmm. But, there are a lot of questions that need to be answered at some point. Yep. And the city manager at the time, he left. And you have another city manager who seems to want to be kind of almost an absentee city manager in a lot of ways. And it's not a good mix right now.
Right. And too, a lot of businesses that have opened up around that district. I mean, BT Smokehouse, God bless them. I mean, they're popular out here in my way in Sturbridge. They took a chance on Polar Park. They were in Polar Park, and they opened up the. They obtained a property like 3 or 4 years ago on the corner of Park Ave and Chandler Street, the old D'Angelo's location. They're out of business. And yeah, so when you start too, and I get that Polar Park people like to go there because it's kind of like a food bar. It's, there's like Faneuil Hall, right? There's kind of like a treat for everybody. But Coney Island and some of these, I gotta say too, man, I love Worcester and everything. Last time I went to Coney, man, I'll tell you, it's not George Coney's dog anymore. I gotta say, last time I went, it was for the money.
Right.
Anyway, not to digress, but I believe Coney Island also, maybe they'll be back this year with the Worcester Red Sox. And, it's quite an honor if you're a local establishment, they did everything they could to make sure that ballpark symbolized Worcester. I know you love that blue tin outside.
I think that honestly, to me, that's the big insult, because so much was promised, and to have that as the final product,
yeah,
like, how do you, that would be the equivalent of your wife telling you she got you a new car, and she shows you a picture in a magazine of like a beautiful brand new like BMW or the Cybertruck if you swing that way, and you pull down the magazine and you see in front of you like a 2000 Honda Civic. I mean,
I was thinking more of a Yugo.
Or a Gremlin, which by the way is on my list of cars that I would totally own, of the sky blue or lime green AMC Gremlin.
My mom owned a Gremlin. For all you folks who are too young to remember, was an American Motor Corporation, AMC. They were known as the junk pile for all the discarded Ford and GM. And AMC said, well, we'll take them and we'll build this. And the Gremlin was a 3-speed, if I remember, was a 3-speed transmission, 2-door coupe. It looked like a hockey puck on the side.
Yep.
So that's my, yeah. So I get you.
Here's the question, though. Could she see out of the back? Because that's the one thing I always wanted was, could you actually see out of the back of that thing?
There were many cars in the 70s that the Mach 5, the Mustang Mach 5, the window was pitched almost the back window, even with the roof,
Right.
There was a car, I think it was an Oldsmobile, the Riviera, had the big old bumpy glass in the middle. Anyway, crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. But so actually, where are you now? Are you still driving?
I'm just sitting in my driveway looking at all the leaves all the sticks and stuff that fell over the course of the winter. But I gotta wait for the snow to melt, and then I want to really do some yard work this year. Baseball starts for me in a couple of weeks, like 4 weeks. So I gotta try to figure out what I'm gonna do as far as the line goes.
So who are you umping for this year? So you've got is it Little League, high school?
So I don't do much Little League anymore. I'm a little. I do come back and do the tournament because it's fun. It kind of gives back a little bit.
Yeah.
But in a couple of weeks, the high school season starts. It's one of my favorite seasons. My longtime high school assigner recently passed away. Donnie Fredericks. He was out of Braintree. Great guy. Actually, it's funny. A funny story. He used to call you. Like most assigners give you games online, and they just give you games. You can take them or leave them. Donnie would call me in late December. He was 76 or 78 at the time, and he sounded about 110 on the phone. But he would talk to you and write down. He would tell you every game he had, and he had a lot of games because he had the Hockomock, he had the Tri-Valley, he had basically the Bay State League. He had everything east of Worcester, and he had some really good baseball. And he would be on the phone with them for an hour, and you could pick your own schedule, and it was great. And he passed away. And when he was giving me the games, he said to me, "I want you to do Walpole Braintree this year." And I'm like, "Great," because he coached at Braintree High. He won 3 state championships at Braintree High. Right. And he said it's going to be a memorable game, kid. And it was the first game he passed away, and the Boston Globe was there. And they actually took a picture of the moment of silence with the Braintree coach, my fellow umpire, and I doing a moment of silence at home plate. And it made the Boston Globe. So, unfortunately, my high school schedule's a little different. It's a little more herky-jerky this year. I'm working for the more local assigners. So that's great. I get to see some of my friends who I work with more in the summer. But it's, I lost a lot of really good baseball, but I hope to get a lot of really good baseball from assigners around here.
That's awesome, dude, because I did see that picture, and so I will say this was a great conversation, and we hope people will actually re-click on this. And so Peter the Kush, the ump, and hope you guys learned a little bit tonight about, the state of everything. We're going to let Pete go in and have some well-deserved supper, and tune in to Cities and Suburbs. There's always something new coming up on the show. And but any closing words, Pete, before we check out? Not officially checking out, but
You don't care. I missed this. I know my appearance fee has gone up over the years.
Yes.
But hopefully I can get back before 2026.
Well, probably in demand, I hope.
So like, subscribe, and follow. And if you're in the comment section, remember, push for Kush. We need more Kush on this.
There you go. I love it. All right, Peter K. Hey, man. Good to have you, and hopefully, you have a good supper coming up, and you guys tune in, subscribe, like, comment. We love it. Thank you, Peter. You've been awesome.
Be good, brother. Be good out there in Radio Land.
All right, man. We'll talk to you, brother.
Take care. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye. All right. Peter K. All right, guys. Thanks a lot. Hopefully, there was a little bit that you glean from that. With the city council, sports, and whatever, but thanks a lot. Years,